All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Robinson again, and we're going to continue our studies, and we're talking about the distance formula. Here's a video I plan on showing the students. The distance d between any 2 points x1 and y1, that's a coordinate, our first coordinate, and our second coordinate x2 and y2, in the coordinate plane is given by the formula d, standing for distance, is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1, that's the x coordinates, the difference between them, squared, plus y2 minus y1, that's the difference between the y coordinates, and you square that. So this formula is like the Pythagorean theorem in disguise. So the only difference is you're using the coordinate plane. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the Pythagorean theorem. Hopefully you've seen my other video doing the Pythagorean theorem to find side C. So we are going to find the distance between point A, negative 4, 2, way down there on the bottom, and point B, 8, 3, up there on the top. So, in order to utilize the Pythagorean theorem, I need a right triangle. So let me get my line tool and connect the lines here. So I'm going to draw a line going to where point B is the same distance across. So it's over there, it's up here at 8, 3, so I went from negative 4 to 8. If you count the number of spaces that I went from there, that's a total of 8 boxes. So that's what they mean by taking the difference between the coordinates. So I know negative 4 minus 8 would be negative 12, but when you square it, it will come out to be positive. So, but just count the boxes. Now, going up, if we went up to this point, we're going from down here from 2, we're going all the way up to this point up here to 3. So that's a total of 5 boxes. So just count the boxes again would be my recommendation, just to see how far you have gotten. So we know that down here is 12 boxes, and going up from here, and you want to count them, let's count for a change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 boxes there, so let's put a 5 here. So we now know the side here, which is the altitude, is 5, and the base is 12. Now that we know that, we can use our Pythagorean theorem to find this hypotenuse, because we have a right triangle here. So let's use our Pythagorean theorem. So if you remember the Pythagorean theorem, it says a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and some people like to use the formula c is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared. So that's also a good formula to have in handy, because that way you solve for side C. So now that we know which is our altitude, which is the 5, we're going to replace that altitude with 5, and now we know our base is 12. We're going to replace that b with 12, so let's replace them in our equation here. So we have c is equal to the square root of 5 squared plus 12 squared. So now let's solve for our answer. So 5 squared means 5 times 5, and 5 times 5 is 25, and plus 12 times 12, that'll give us 144. So now we have to add 25 and 144. Well, that adds up to 169. And remember, we have our square root symbol there. So now we have to take the square root of 169. What times itself is equal to 169? And that answer is 13. So our answer would be the distance from A to B would be 13 boxes, or 13 units. So if you want the distance, 13. So that's one way of doing it. I like that way myself because it's just counting and using the Pythagorean theorem that we're used to using. But here's the distance formula. I'm giving you the same point, the distance between -4 and -2 and 8 and 3. So we would have to subtract -4 minus 8, and that would equal to -12. And then we'd have to square that. -12 squared would give us a positive 144. So let's square that. It's 144. Now, that's the difference between the x coordinate. Now we got a y coordinate to deal with. So -2 minus 3, and that is equal to -5. And we have to take out -5 and square that. And -5 squared, -5 times -5 is positive 25. But then we have to take 144, add that to 25, and that will equal 169. And then finally we would take the square root of 169, and that equals 13. So notice how much work we did in order to get that answer using the distance formula. So if you like using the distance formula, by all means just go right ahead and use it, because it does come in handy at times, but it is the Pythagorean theorem in theory. So choose whichever method that you like. It should get you the same results if you've done it correctly. So the difference between the x coordinates squared plus the difference between the y coordinates squared. So here I subtracted my x coordinates, I subtracted my y coordinates and squared them both, giving me my answer underneath the radical sign, and then taking the square root of that, and that gave me my answer. So the distance formula does work. If you do like using the Pythagorean theorem, making your triangle and counting your boxes, I urge you to do so. Whichever method is best for you, use it. So check your understanding, see if you understand it so far. If not, write down your questions, watch the video again, and bring in any questions that you have. Here's a question for you about Cincinnati is located at 5,4, and San Diego is located at -10, -3 on a coordinate grid. So they want to know how far apart is Cincinnati from San Diego on the map. And you got to round your answer to the nearest tenth. That should be interesting. So there it is plotted out. So see if you can find the answer. So I hope you found this lesson pretty easy and helpful. And again, use what method which makes it easiest for you. So this is Dr. Robinson. I'll talk to you in class. Bye.